Alright, in this lesson I wanted to expand on something I had mentioned ever so briefly earlier in the course, and that's the concept of vector shapes inside Photoshop. Now, I'm going to go down in the toolbar. If you remember, that tool is right down here, and we've got a number of different shapes to select from. Now, I'm going to go ahead and grab this ellipse tool here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the polygon tool, and I'm just going to draw a box out. Now, what it does is it basically generates a shape layer. You can see in the layers panel that we've got a color layer here, just a color fill layer with a vector mask on it. And over here in my document, it just looks like any other layer or any other shape. But if you go into the tool right above the shape tools and this little arrow right here and you click and hold, you've got two tools in here. You've got the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. So I grab that path selection tool and click on my object and move it around. You'll notice that it has the vector points and curves on it. And I can move it around and do anything I want with it. You can also use the direct selection tool to grab individual points of your shape and resize it any way you want it to be. Now, the beauty of vector shapes is that they are resolution independent, meaning we can drag and drop these between any size document and scale them up and down and do whatever we like, and it's never going to lose quality the way a pixel-based image would. And that gives you a tremendous amount of advantages when you're designing or if you're working in graphic design, if you're going to be working with various color shapes. This is a good way of keeping very sharp edges on those objects by using these vector shapes. So we go back into the tool here. I want to talk about another couple of aspects here in the options bar. Let's go ahead and delete that layer. So if you're up in here, notice that you got these three icons. You've got this first one, which represents drawing a shape layer. This next icon will draw just the path itself and not fill it with a color, as you can see. Still being able to use the path selection tools to modify it and reposition it, but it's still just a vector shape. And this is an interesting way of going about generating selections of various types of shapes. In fact, let me go ahead and delete that. Let's say you wanted to use a custom shape. Now there's obviously rectangular, rounded rectangulars, ellipse tools, there's even the line tool. There's also the custom shape tool. And here is, you notice up here in the options bar, we've got a new menu here. If I click on this, you can now access a number of different types of graphic shapes. Not only that, there are a number of different categories of shapes in here you can load. So if I wanted to get some arrows perhaps, I'll append it to this section. And we'll just grab an arrow shape here and we'll just drag it out into my document. Now, again, it's set to paths, so it's only going to show me the path now. If I wanted to generate a shape layer of that arrow, I'll just simply drag that out, and it will give me a shape layer. And that's because I've selected this first icon here. Now, one other thing I want to talk about shape layers is these icons right over here. These are the adding and subtracting, all from the various shape layers. So if I wanted to add to this existing shape, then I would go ahead and select this icon and grab another shape perhaps, and we'll just add it to that. You'll notice what happens in the layers panel. We now can see those two distinctive shapes, and we can also select each one individually. Even though on the layer it represents one color. If we go over here and deselect the layer, we're still looking at one basic shape, but it's made up of two individual vector shapes that we can move around independently and even move outside each other if we want. And I can also change the way this is blending. If I move this over that shape, and right now it's set to combine, or to unite with it, what if we clicked on this feature? You'll notice it removes that area. It can intersect the area and do other effects like that. So it's a quick and easy way of generating shapes and being able to modify them using the various vector tools. And again, the advantage being that they're resolution independent. Now I'll show you one of the more common ways of using these vector tools. Let's go ahead and grab our text tool here. I'm just going to click inside my document and we're going to set some text. And we'll just do SOS. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this text up, and I just press Command or Control T to open up my free transform, and we'll just resize this object. And another way of getting in there and resizing your object is simply going into the Edit menu and going to Transform, and we'll just do Scale. And we'll just go in here and modify that shape, just like that. Now, I'm going to go into the Layers panel. I'm going to hold down my Control key or right-click on your mouse and click right on that layer, and you'll bring up this menu. We're going to go down here to this option right here, which is Convert to Shape. And you'll notice what happened is now turned that text into a vector shape layer. So if we were to go over here and grab our vector shape tools, we can move these objects around. So I'm just going to overlap these shapes just a little bit like that. And I'm just going to use that same path selection tool and drag and select all of these shapes And I was going to change the blending here. Let's see if we can we'll do this last one right here. And you'll notice that it gives me a very interesting effect. And it's able to do that because they are now vector shapes. So you can achieve a lot of interesting effects using these vector shapes. And as usual with the other features, I encourage you to go in there and just experiment with them and see what other kind of cool features you can come up with. And have fun with it. So that is Vector Tools inside Photoshop.